Many years ago, in a lively street called Mission Street, there was only one barbing salon that everyone trusted. This salon was owned by Papa Kingsley, an old man who had been cutting hair since the days when boys loved punk and girls lined up to do Jerry coils for Christmas. His clippers were ancient and vibrated like a generator, and sometimes they pinched your skin if you moved too much. But nobody complained because Papa Kingsley was more than just a barber. He was like a guardian to the community boys. He would rub shea butter on your scalp after barbing your hair, pray for you, and ask you how school was going. Also, he didn't collect money from any boy who came from a poor home. He would just smile and say, "Your head is more important than your wallet. Go home." But things changed when Papa Kingsley fell ill. At first, people thought it was just malaria, but he kept coughing and shaking, and soon he stopped opening the shop completely. As a result, the boys started going around with rough hair until a new barbing salon opened at the far end of the street, right opposite the mechanic workshop. The signboard was loud and bold, with silver letters that read "Fine Edge Cuts." The writing glowed at night, and the glass doors looked like something from the city. Everyone was surprised because nobody saw when they built it. It wasn't there last week, but now it stood as if it had always belonged. The walls were painted black and grey. Inside, the floor tiles were spotless, the chairs were leather black that spun smoothly, and a big mirror covered the entire wall. The man behind the clippers was a slim, dark-skinned young man with neatly trimmed beards who wore gloves on both hands and a gold chain with a small razor blade hanging from it. He said his name was Timo. Nobody knew his last name, and he did not talk much. He didn't even greet the elders sitting by the junction. He only came, opened his shop at exactly 9 a.m., cut hair with speed in silence, then locked up and left by 6 p.m. sharp. He never smiled or talked with anyone. The younger boys on the streets were the first to try him, and they were thrilled. "Guy, forget that old man. This Timo go give you superstar look," they said. "Him go use hot towel press your neck like say you dey abroad." And slowly, everyone began going to see for themselves. Even the stubborn ones who swore loyalty to Papa Kingsley eventually gave in after seeing the photos of fresh haircuts on the new salon's glass. To top it all, Fine Edge Cuts had ring lights, free Wi-Fi, and even a menu with different styles. So it did not take long before Timo became the talk of Mission Street. That was when Michael entered the picture. Michael was a tall, slim, respectful boy who had just turned 17. He lived with his widowed mother, Ma Judith, who sold fabrics at the junction. Michael used to stay with his uncle in the city, but he recently returned home to stay with his mom. His mother used to take him to Papa Kingsley, and even after coming back from the city, he continued with that tradition. But now that the old man was sick and no longer in the shop, she gave him 1,500 naira and said, "Go and get a clean cut, but be careful. Don't just go anywhere." Michael nodded, put the money into his pocket, and walked out that Saturday morning. He told himself he would just try the new salon once and then return to Papa Kingsley when he recovered. As soon as he stepped into Fine Edge Cuts, he noticed the place was silent, like a hospital that just finished surgery. Timo stood up slowly from a stool, looked at Michael through the mirror, and said without smiling, "Sit down." Michael hesitated but moved forward and sat on the black leather chair. Timo didn't ask what style he wanted. He just placed a white cape around Michael's neck, pressed a hot towel gently to his face, and switched on the clipper. The clipper vibrated quietly, unlike Papa Kingsley's own. Michael felt the first touch of the clipper on the back of his head, and a cold shiver ran down his spine. But he said nothing. He watched himself in the mirror as Timo walked fast like a professional. And when it was done, Michael looked at his reflection and he couldn't lie. The cut was perfect. His jaw looked sharper. His hairline was flawless, and he looked more mature and confident, almost like a different person. He paid Timo and walked out feeling different. However, that night, Michael couldn't sleep. He had turned from side to side, shifted his pillow, even drank cold water and counted from 1 to 100. But no matter what he tried, it was like something inside him refused to rest. The room was quiet and his mother was already snoring in her room. But his eyes were wide open and his chest felt tight. At first, he thought maybe it was excitement from the new haircut and the adrenaline from all the compliments he got earlier in the day. His friends at the football pitch had called him celebrity boy and sharp guy. Even his crush, Marianne, smiled at him from her mother's gate and said, "You are looking different, so this your head is clean." But as the night grew deeper, Michael realized it wasn't excitement. It was something else. He kept hearing unclear voices like a crowd murmuring behind his ears. And each time he turned, there was nothing or no one there. He sat up from the bed and looked into the mirror across his room. He stared at himself and sighed. Then he frowned. What just happened? His reflection blinked late. Michael blinked again, deliberately this time. And yet again, his reflection blinked 2 seconds after he did. He froze. He rubbed his eyes, stepped closer and looked again. But everything seemed normal. He touched his face, scratched his nose, and his reflection followed him exactly. Oh, maybe he was just imagining things. Sleep was just playing tricks with his mind. The next morning, he did not tell anybody about it. He simply dressed up for church and followed his mother as usual. They sat at the second row in the middle section. His mother was busy clapping and dancing, but Michael felt numb. His eyes kept scanning the faces of the people around him, and sometimes they looked like they were melting. He blinked again and everything cleared. That evening, as he brushed his hair, he noticed something odd. There was a bald patch at the back of his head. It was a perfectly round, smooth spot that wasn't there before. He dropped the brush and touched the spot slowly. This patch didn't look like where hair broke off from. It looked like someone had deliberately shaved it off in the middle of the night. Just then, the voices returned again, and this time it was sharp and dragging, as if something far away was calling his name from underwater. He screamed and his mother rushed in panting. "What is it? What happened?" Michael quickly covered the bald spot with his palm and shook his head. "It's nothing. I saw something in the mirror. It scared me." His mother frowned. "What did you see?" "I don't know," he lied. "Maybe I'm just tired." His mother looked at him for a long time. Then she sighed and left the room. But as she went back to her room, something kept troubling her. Her son. Her calm, respectful and God-fearing Michael had never screamed like that before. He had never acted jumpy or moody. Neither was he the kind of boy who lied or gave half answers. Something was definitely wrong. And then, the next morning, she found him still asleep, shivering under the blankets. Even though the room wasn't cold, his Bible was open beside him to Psalm 91, as if he was trying to protect himself. She screamed his name and touched him. His body was really hot, so she assumed it was fever and rushed out to get him medicine. But as she passed by the street market, she heard something shocking. "Did you hear what happened to Chuka?" "Which Chuka?" "Mama, that boy now, the one who got that fine haircut last week. What about him?" He started shouting, "Leave my hair alone," in the middle of the market, naked. They carried him to a prayer ground this morning. Michael's mother heard the talks, but she didn't believe it until she saw it with her own eyes. She was coming back from her fabric store when she saw Mama Ada, Chuka's mother, sitting on the bare floor outside her gate, weeping and pulling her own wrapper. "My son, my only son, his father died, and now this, what did I do?" And as soon as she heard that, Michael's mother's chest tightened. Her son, was he really just sick, or wait, He had been behaving strange since after the new haircut. He even now has a scarf over his head, which was unusual. Her legs went cold. She turned and began to walk back home without greeting anyone. That evening, she didn't wait. She stormed into Michael's room, bent over and took off the scarf covering his head while he slept. What she saw broke her heart into pieces. His scalp was full of tiny dots, like symbols carved with the tip of a blade. But this wasn't razor bumps. It wasn't normal. It looked like something out of a ritual manual. She screamed and Michael woke up sweating and confused. "What is this on your head, Michael?" "Mommy, I don't know how it got there. It was just a haircut." But she wasn't listening to him. She poured anointing oil on his head and began to pray. "Whatever they did, it will not stand. I will not bury my son. My womb will not produce madness. Michael, tell me the truth. Who cut your hair?" Michael broke down and explained. "It was the new barber, Timu, at Fine Edge Cuts. He did not even ask me what style I wanted. He just started cutting, and since then, I've not been the same." Ma Judith didn't waste time. She tied her headscarf, wore her slippers, held her Bible and dragged Michael by the hand. "We are going there now." But when they got to Fine Edge Court, the door was locked and the signboard was gone as if it never existed. Even the men playing drafts beside the mechanic shop said they did not see anyone open the shop that day. "But he was there yesterday now," one of them said. "No be me go talk that one," no, the other one added and folded his arms. Ma Judith went around asking questions, but nobody gave her answers. The entire community was now filled with fear. First, Papa Kingsley got sick. Then, this shiny new shop appeared from nowhere. Now, boys were losing their minds one after the other. And then, the barber was suddenly nowhere to be found. Later that evening, she went to visit Papa Kingsley, who was now recovering slowly in his house. The old man sat on a wooden stool outside, sipping warm ginger tea. She knelt and greeted him respectfully. Then she asked, "Papa, please, I came to ask you something. Do you know the man who opened that new salon?" Papa Kingsley sighed and shook his head slowly. "That man is not from here. He never greeted me or introduced himself. He never even made eye contact. And from what I know about barbers who cut boys' heads without asking their style, it is not just cutting hair. I believe he was collecting something." "Collecting what?" Mama Judith asked. "Their crown." Her heart jumped. "Crown?" "Yes, the glory of a man is in his head. Even the Bible says it. Once you allow the wrong hands to touch it, you have exchanged something." Then he looked at her directly. "If he already touched your son's head, go and find a real man of God and be fast about it before your son begins to forget his own name." The next morning, Ma Judith did not go to her shop. She did not even cook. By 5 a.m., she had already taken her bath and dressed Michael in a white shirt and black trousers. She carried her Bible, tied her wrapper tight around her waist, and held her son's hands as if he was a toddler again. Michael looked weak and pale. He couldn't even talk properly. He had not eaten in days, and whenever he walked past a mirror or a glass surface, he would pause, stare, and whisper, "They are watching me." Ma Judith did not care what the neighbors thought. She did not even care who saw her or who laughed at her. All she knew was that her child was not going to end up like those boys on the streets who ran mad and started eating from dustbins. Not her Michael. Not the same boy who used to sing Psalm 23 from memory during family devotions. So, by 6:30 a.m., she was already standing at the gates of Firehouse Revival Ministries, waiting for the morning prayer team to open the church. When the assistant pastor arrived, she went straight to him and cried, "Pastor, please, my son needs help. They took something from him. Please help us." The man looked at Michael once and nodded solemnly. "Follow me." They didn't waste time. They took Michael straight to the altar, laid him down, and called other 3 ministers. As they began to pray, Michael started trembling. His lips moved, but no words came out. Then, slowly, he began to laugh. not his usual laughter, but a cold, wicked laughter like an ancient man. They continued praying. Ma Judith knelt at the corner, crying and quoting Bible verses she did not even remember memorizing. Every tongue that shall arise against my son shall be condemned by fire. Whosoever diggeth a pit shall fall into it themselves. As the prayers intensified, Michael screamed. Then suddenly, he began to speak in a voice that was not his own. His glory was sweet. His star was bright. That woman begged us to leave her son alone, but he pushed himself into our hands. He danced when we collected him. He celebrated our work. Everyone froze. The pastor shouted, "Who are you?" The voice inside Michael laughed again. "I am the taker of destinies, the collector of crowns, the one who makes kings crawl on the ground." Then Michael's body jerked and he slumped. His mother fainted. It took over 3 hours, but eventually, after intense deliverance and prayers, Michael woke up and lay quietly on the altar. The evil presence was gone. The strange voice no longer spoke, and the marks on his head began to fade slowly. When he opened his eyes, he held his mother's hands and said, "I'm sorry, Mom. I didn't know. I just wanted to look fresh like the other boys. That was why I went there." She wiped her eyes and held him tight. "Shh, don't talk. We thank God for his mercy. Just rest." But the pastor wasn't done. He turned to her and said, "Madam, this wasn't just a haircut. It was an initiation. The barber was a spiritual collector. Your son's star was almost exchanged, and there are more like him in town. That salon wasn't just a business, it was an altar." Ma Judith felt her legs go weak. She asked, "So, what do we do now?" The pastor looked at Michael and said, "Cover his head, anoint it every morning. Let no strange hand touch it again. And most importantly, speak life over him. There is still greatness in him, but the devil tried to erase it through ignorance." 2 weeks after the deliverance, Michael was finally becoming himself again. He could sleep well and the voices in his head were gone. Every morning, his mother would anoint his head with anointing oil, lay her hands on his crown and pray, "Your destiny will not be exchanged. Your light will not be stolen. Your glory is preserved." The bald patch was healing, but Michael's memory of that barber shop remained fresh, like a wound that refused to heal. And then, one morning, everything took a new turn. Mama Ifoma, the landlady of the compound beside them, knocked on their door looking like someone who just saw a ghost. "Judith, I think I found something about that man, the strange barber." Ma Judith stepped out curiously. "What man?" "That barber, Timo, the one that vanished. What about him?" Mama Ifoma looked around, lowered her voice and said, "He didn't vanish. He is staying in room 13 of Hilltop Lodge, the one near the old cemetery." "Eh?" "Yes, so my niece went there to visit her boyfriend. When she passed the corridor, she saw him sitting by the window sharpening clippers. She ran because she said he doesn't look normal." Ma Judith recovered from the shock quickly, and without wasting time, she grabbed her scarf, locked her door and followed Mama Ifoma straight to the lodge. Now, Hilltop Lodge was not a normal place. It was where people who had bad pasts went to hide. The compound had rusty zinc and an unspoken reputation of secrecy. However, nobody stayed in room 13. That room had always been locked until now. The 2 women reached the gate and waited. Then the manager, a man with red eyes, came out and screamed, "Yes, waiting." Ma Judith stepped forward. "We came to ask about the man in room 13. "Which man?" "The barber, the one with that shiny clipper who is always wearing gloves." The manager scratched his head. "That's Oga. He check in, yes, but the funny thing be say, he never leave that room since when he come. And him no get light or food, but every night we dey hear sound." "Sound?" "Yes now, like chanting." "Please, can we see him?" The manager shook his head. "I no fit open that door. Since he came, 3 other guests left. They say their sleep is not pure again. Please Please, Ma Judith begged. Just open it. I need to see him. He almost destroyed my son. Reluctantly, the man agreed. He took a rusted spare key and led them to the back corridor. But as soon as they stood before room 13, everywhere suddenly became cold. He inserted the key and opened the door slowly. But what they saw made Mama Ifeoma faint on the spot. Inside the room was no bed, no chair and no table. Just a circle of mirrors, and in the middle, a chair with human hair was piled at the foot. There were also dozens of passport photographs of young boy with clean-shaven heads pasted on the walls. But the man was not there. Timo, he had disappeared again. The shocking story spread around the community, and parents began checking their sons' heads. Boys were rushed for prayers, and some of them confessed that they had dreams of being chased by men in barbing aprons. One boy said he kept seeing himself sitting on a salon chair, but every time he turned to see the barber's face, it was his own father's face. The pastors of Firehouse Revival declared 7 days of fasting in the whole district. They sprinkled salt and warned people. Not every hand should touch your hair. The crown of your destiny is sacred. As for Mama Judith, she never allowed Michael visit a salon again. She bought clippers, learned to cut hair, and every Sunday before church, she would sit him down on a stool in their kitchen to cut his hair. I would rather cut your head out of shape than hand you over to the devil with style. Michael smiled and said, Mommy, even if I look like a yam head, at least I will be safe. They both laughed. Thank you for watching the story. Kindly share your thoughts about the story with me in the comment section. Share the story out with your loved ones and give the story a thumbs up.